Okay, uh, welcome to our next lecture on the art and politics of narrative. And this week we'll be talking about relationality. So I'll be breaking up this lecture into two. The first part will be mostly a discussion of the course overview, specifically what we're doing now that it looks like our classes will be canceled, live classes anyway, for most of the semester. So how are we going to handle that? Secondly, I'm going to go over the midterm assignment. I have posted that on Moodle now, so you can access that. And I'm going to be talking about how we're going to do the participation format. And then I'll do a little bit of talking about what we're all talking about in the forums and like a follow-up. And then when it comes to the actual lecture and our discussions of ceremony, I will stop the video and then create a new recording. So that way it's kind of split up into two. So this first part will be the administration stuff. Okay, so thank you for following along with the course as we've been going on. I know that it's kind of not what you expected, not what I expected either. In general, I prefer a very kind of like a dynamic class where we hang out and talk about the text and that kind of thing. And I explain the theory, but then we kind of see how we can use it together. And I like to do these presentations so that each of you has the opportunity to kind of demonstrate, show off, I guess, I don't know, talk to your classmates and show them, all that you're learning, and also take opportunity to be teachers. So unfortunately, that's not really possible right now. So we're going to try to find a better way to do it. So if you look at the syllabus, participation is actually worth 35% of the grade. So that includes, active participation in class and then also presentations. So because we're not going to do the presentations this semester, I need the participation to be some other format. Okay. So far we've had some participation in the forums, which has been really great. But I also put up a poll. So later on, after, or hopefully you've done it now, you can click on this poll and you can choose what form of participation or forms would best develop your ability to work together with classmates in achieving the course learning objectives. Okay, so options are you can write in the forums, or we can do an online video discussion. So if you want, we can all get together on Zoom, I guess, and talk. Or what you can do is you can do what I'm doing right now, is record a response to the readings or the lectures. You can be video or just audio, and then you post it in Moodle, like in the forums, so like as a YouTube link like I'm doing, or some other format. Okay. Another thing you can do is you can record a group presentation on certain topics, and then post that on Moodle. So lastly, and I think another interesting option would be to get together in groups, but I mean not in physical groups, but like online in like a Zoom conference, and discuss a topic for like 30 minutes. So it would be like a small group. So like let's say 3 of you, 4 of you get together in a group and just talk about ceremony, or talk about ideology or something like that. But you'd have to record that meeting and then we would post it in the Moodle so everyone else can see, or a sort of mixture of these, up to each student to decide. So if some students prefer to write in forums, whereas others prefer to do a certain way, then we can go that way as well. The reason I'm asking you to do it as a poll, so I can see, is the number of people who want to do it a certain way. So if I get like 10 people who want to do an online video discussion, then maybe we'll do that. Whereas if like there's no people who want to do that, then I'm not going to bother setting that up. Okay. All right. So yeah, please vote on that. I will check that again at the end of next week, and we'll make a decision. Okay. The participation part needs to kind of I guess we need more participation after the midterm, okay, just to make sure that you're all kind of taking part in that. So let us look at the midterm then. Okay, midterm essay handout. Okay, so anyway, yeah, so participation, keep writing in the forums. Obviously watch the videos, do the readings, okay? So one thing that's kind of interesting but also kind of creepy about Moodle is everything that you do, like I can kind of see, like I can see how often you sign online. I can see whether or not you've for example, okay, so let's click on me, okay, because otherwise it would be creepy. Like I can see how much you've actually done in Moodle. So I can see if you've actually looked at the syllabus. I can see if you've actually voted in the polls. I can see if you've actually posted in the discussions and clicked on the readings, and that kind of thing. So it's like if at the end of the semester I go onto Moodle and I click on your name and I look through and I see you have not clicked on any of the readings or the references, that tells me it's like you have, like, I don't know for sure if you read it, but I do know that you clicked on it and opened the file, and when you did. Okay, so I don't know. I'm not that into this kind of surveillance thing, but I need to know that you're doing the work. It's part of the participation. Okay, so just know that I'll be doing that at the end of the semester. So make sure to take part and do all the activities on Moodle. Okay, just so I know that you're participating in the class. Okay, and then whatever you decide to do in this, and also like it records like your name for me. Your classmates will not know, but I will know what you choose. So then if you choose to do like write in forums, then I'll expect you to write in the forums. Okay. If you choose to get together in a group and do a conference, then I will check to, I'll help you set that up and find other people who want to do it with you, or hopefully you can find other people who want to do it with you. And then, I'll expect that to happen. Obviously you can change your choice later, and if it can't happen, it can't happen. That's okay. I'm a pretty reasonable guy, but person. Yeah. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do with participation for the semester. And because it's worth 35% of your grade, it's, it's important, but it's also an opportunity for those of you who maybe feel like what your real kind of contribution to the course will be in kind of presentations or discussion, that kind of thing. And that's totally legitimate. And it's important too, because your classmates will learn from you. All right. So, okay, now let's talk about the midterm. Okay, so for the midterm, I decided that I want to make it due on March 10th instead of March 3rd. The reason is because I just feel like I haven't had enough time to teach all the content to you. So that's why I want to give you one more week. That being said, I really think you should start working on the midterm ASAP. You should have an idea of what you want to write about, at least the text. Okay, so so I recommend that you move ahead. Okay, so like let's say you don't really want to write about ceremony or Oedipus or Cheater's Guide to Love, then I recommend, or Tristis Tropiques or Across the Big Water. Then I think you should watch The Matrix, or you should watch Westworld's the original. Okay. If you have any trouble getting this episode, let me know. We can find a way to get it to you. Okay? But yeah, so fast forward if you're not interested in writing about these topics. Okay? But you do have to write about one of them. Okay? So one of the narrative texts. All right? So this is it. It's an essay prompt, 1,200 to 1,600 words. Okay? You can talk about Life of Pi, whether that's the film or the book. You can talk about Oedipus Rex. You can talk about The Cheater's Guide to Love. You can write about ceremony, Tristis Tropiques, which is the Claude Levi-Strauss extract. You can write about Across the Big Water, which is, I'll talk a little bit about that today. You can write about The Matrix, or the original, the episode of Westworld, and discuss the text, showing your critical textual reading and analysis skills in light of our reading and class discussions. So this is important. It's basically what I will be assessing in this essay is your implementation of a particular form of interpretation. So your ability to use a particular form of narrative interpretation. So remember, there's no such thing as like the right interpretation. Every mode of interpretation will lead to different kinds of results. Okay, so that's why it's like I can interpret Life of Pi and you can interpret Life of Pi and we can come up with different interpretations. It's because our perspective on Life of Pi, the way we choose to analyze Life of Pi will be different. Okay, so but at the same time you need to reference the type of analysis that you're doing and explain why that type of analysis will be helpful for you to create or generate a different type or an important type of interpretation. So with that in mind then, I recommend that you try something different. Okay, so many of you, and a lot of these modes of interpretation are very much linked, or they build upon each other. Okay, so but like maybe don't read. Well, you can if you want, but if you are gonna do like ceremony, if you let's say you write about ceremony and you talk about it in terms of the monomyth, that's okay, but you got to say something new, something different. Like I'm not gonna remember to get an A or get like a distinction in this course. You need to do something that's above and beyond what you're learning. You've just learned in the course. So if you write an essay where you demonstrate that you've learned from these lectures and you can do like a psychoanalysis of the Cheater's Guide to Love, that's fine, but you're not going to get like top marks, okay? Because you need to do something original, something different. So, and you can combine analysis, combine interpretive modes, that's fine, okay? So try something different, okay? So the essay should comment on the relationship between the art and politics. And when I say politics, I mean that broadly defined. So to include all forms of social organization, like romantic and familial relations as well. So like, you could say the Oedipus complex is, where the son wants to kill the father in order to be with the mother, is a form of politics, okay? So I mean all forms of social organization, whether that's big P politics, like, who's going to be the president or what the UN does or whatever, or small p, like, the politics of our classroom, okay? So I mean that quite broadly. But you need to comment on the relationship between the art and politics of storytelling. Okay, so how does art influence politics? How does politics influence art in storytelling? Okay, and yes, everything is political, right? So it's like, what is Pi's name? Okay, is it piscine? Is it pie? Is it pissing? Okay, this is also political. Okay, especially if you think about it in terms of like the names of an ethnic group, of a religious minority, or something like that. Like, it's a very different thing if you say that someone is a Chink versus a Chinese person versus Han versus Asian versus Oriental. These are also political, okay? And they do have to do with storytelling. Okay, all right, so your essays may include analyses of text in series with the assigned text, okay? So that's another reason why I want to extend the deadline, is because we haven't gotten to seriality yet. Seriality, we'll be teaching that on the week of March 3rd, okay? But if you want to read ahead, that's okay too. But seriality is basically a way of thinking about texts, or any phenomena really, as being a continuation, as being sort of together, right? So like a very obvious series would be like Star Wars, right? You have like episode 4, episode 5, episode 6, and then episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, right? Obviously television series, right? These are in series, okay? Or you could think about like the Oedipus myth, well, Sophocles' version, so the play is actually a series as well. So he wrote Oedipus Rex, then Oedipus et Colonis, and then he wrote Antigone. Okay, actually, I don't know if Antigone came second, but anyway, so these are also in series. So the entire book, This Is How You Lose Her, has a series of short stories, including The Cheater's Guide to Love. So if you want to comment or discuss or talk about seriality as a form of storytelling, that's okay too. And you can talk about these different forms of series, okay? All right, so the purpose of this assignment is to help you utilize various theoretical perspectives in your analysis of narrative and narration. So remember, you must write an argumentative essay that demonstrates your ability to use various theoretical perspectives to close read, right, narrative texts. So close read means you are doing a textual analysis, all right? You're reading it closely, and you must have an argument. That means I want a thesis statement, okay? You can't just go in there and just like write, and throw it together. There needs to be an organization, and there needs to be an argument. Okay, you must be proving something using your interpretation. Like, for example, like I would say, a thesis statement would be like, let me see, I use, or this essay uses the structural interpretation of the monomyth as a method to analyze ceremonies, use of I don't know, man. You gotta come with it on your own. But to analyze, I don't know, the figure of the wise old man and the role, or okay, like in the forums have some interesting, uses the monomyth as a structural interpretation in order to analyze the role of the night swan in ceremony, in order to argue, and this will be your thesis statement, that the night swan, the role of the night swan, or the night swan represents the night swan, the figure of the night swan is significant for awakening Teo's erotic self, or something like that. Okay, I don't know. you that's your interpretation. Okay, that's your argument, and then the rest of your essay will go towards proving that argument. Okay, so you need to kind of like this is an academic essay. Okay, right? You're all in a course on you're trying to get your master's in literary and cultural studies. So to demonstrate mastery, you need to make convincing arguments using textual analysis. Okay, all right. So some hints. And yes, you can download this handout on Moodle. Okay, so it's right here. So make sure to download it. Okay. Hints. Your essay must have a focus and include concepts from the first 5 lectures. You may analyze narrative, visual, allegorical, linguistic, theoretical, or other aspects in any of the primary texts discussed in class to support your argument. Right. So like when I say linguistic, I mean that even in the sense of like, like we talked about last week, the Levi-Straussian, analysis of the sign, right? Semiotics. So, you could be like, this is an analysis of the semiotics of the rain or ritual or ceremony in the novel Ceremony. And you can analyze what is the sign, what is the signifier, what is the signified, and what does the relationship between those two teach you or demonstrate about the social system that the novel is creating. Okay, so you could do an allegory. Okay, and I'm going to teach you allegory in terms of like a Marxist understanding of allegory next week. Okay, when we talk about the Matrix as a sort of allegory of modern day neoliberal capitalism, I guess. Yeah. All right. I need to go back to my notes. Okay. All right. So yeah. And you need to support your argument. Okay, so yeah, you have a lot of options. Okay, but you do need to talk about one of these texts. All right, stay alert to the literary and filmic aspects, such as narrative strategies, visual aspects, including setting, place, characterization, wording, perspective, structure, tone, and objects, and/or other components. Remember, this is your data. Okay, this is what you're going to be, interpreting in order to make your argument, your narrative, visual, allegorical, or other argument. Okay. So use analysis of imagery, metaphors, phrases, or a scene and its specific details to support your ideas. But do not include analysis or examples that do not support your argument. Okay? It's like if you read Ceremony, you're like, oh, this passage is really, really cool and I think it's really significant, but it doesn't support your thesis statement, then you have to cut it out. I'm sorry about that, but it doesn't belong in the essay. That doesn't mean it's not valuable. If you want to share it, you can share it in the forums. I know that many of you have talked about the character of the Night Swan in the forums, or even the role of the anti-hero in the forums. That's awesome. Okay, and I think your classmates appreciate it. I appreciate it. At the same time, if it does not support your argument and your thesis, then you can include it in your essay. That doesn't mean it doesn't count. Okay, it still counts. It's still important. Okay, and your classmates may be able to use it. All right, and it still contributes to our overall understanding of the text, but not for your essay. The essay is itself a type of writing. Okay, that must be argumentative. So you need to follow that sort of system of writing. Okay. All right. So the introductory paragraph should contextualize the argument the essay makes. What debate does the essay take part in? Be specific and don't overgeneralize. Okay, so you need to introduce your argument and explain in a very concise manner why your argument is important to understand. Why is it that we want to answer this kind of question? Okay, the last sentence of the introductory paragraph should be the thesis statement or the main argument of the essay. The reader should be able to read only the sentence and know the point the entire essay makes. So, kind of a quick hint: when I'm reading an essay, I can tell from the introduction pretty much what range the essay is going to be. Like, is it going to be an A essay, a B essay, a C essay? Okay, just pretty much. And then as I read along, I can, as I'm reading the evidence, I can be like, okay, this is more of an A, a high A than, or it's more of an A minus, or maybe it's more of a B plus. But basically, within the first paragraph, I have a general idea of, where this essay is going to go. And also, if it's well written, it reads really fast. Usually, it's kind of funny, but A essays, like, I can read them in like 2 to 5 minutes. It's just so fast. It's well written, it's well conceived, it's polished, and it's easy to understand. If an essay takes me about 30 minutes to read, like, generally like B minus C essays, they take a long time to read because they're jumbled, they're not well put together, they're not organized, So that's why it's important that you do all the work. The more work that you do as a writer, then the less work your reader has to do. Okay, and when you really take care of your reader and you really guide your reader, through the argument and make it very clear, then in general you get a good grade. Okay, and this is also important to think about because you are getting your master's. Is eventually you may become a writer. You may write academic essays, as a scholar, or you may be writing, for cultural magazines or something like that. So essays are not for showing your reader how much you know. Essays are a form of teaching where you're explaining something to your reader and you're proving something to your reader. Okay, so this is a kind of mindset that you need to change now that you are working on your master's. You're no longer demonstrating to your teacher everything that you know, or that you actually read the book, or that that you know how to use a certain tool. Instead, you need to think of it as, I'm going to teach something to the reader. Okay, and you need to have that form of clarity. That is what an A essay is. Okay, all right. So that means that your thesis statement needs to be very, very clear. So those of you who maybe are doing research or you are citing other people, you realize that oftentimes the sentence that you cite will be that thesis statement. So it's important then that you write a really good thesis statement. So one day when another student or scholar comes along and reads your essay, they're like, oh, okay, this person makes a really strong argument, and that argument is this thesis statement, and they can write it down and then cite it in their own work. Like, Coe argues that blah, 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 blah in page blah, 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 blah. That's your thesis statement. That's your argument, okay? So it needs to be very, very well crafted. And the rest of the essay goes towards proving that thesis statement, okay? So providing evidence, but also developing and making it clear to your reader why that thesis statement is significant, okay? All right, so each body paragraph must begin with a topic sentence that demonstrates how the paragraph connects to the main argument or thesis statement. So you need to make this very clear. How will this next paragraph explain or prove the argument that the overall essay makes? Okay, the reader should be able to read only the topic sentences of each body paragraph and know the entire argument of the essay. I know this sounds kind of like you would think that really good essays, don't work like this, but actually really good essays, you can actually skim them. And a very well written essay, you can read just the argument, just the thesis, just the topic sentence, and it's like you'll understand everything. Really good essays are like really good teaching. You could get just the main points and you will actually understand the whole argument. And then you would read the details to understand it even better. Okay? So be as specific as possible with your examples. Each body paragraph should use one specific example to prove the argument of the topic sentence. Do not waste space. So when I say you have 1,200 to 1,600 words, I don't mean you need to get to 1,200 or 1,600. I mean you only get 1,200 to 1,600 words. So use up that space. Use it well, okay? That's your reader's attention. It's like a currency. I know that you're looking at this video and you're like, oh, how long is this video, right? How much do I have to listen to? That's the attention span. That's what your reader gives you, okay? That's the kind of gift to you. I will listen to you for X amount of time. Now use it well. So only cite the key aspect of the example that the paragraph analyzes. So you need to contextualize it. Remember, your argument has as much to do with how you choose your example as how you read the example, okay? When you contextualize succinctly, okay? So what you might want to do is when you're writing about a particular example, just introduce it and then go back and cut, It's like, is this necessary for the reader to understand? Is this necessary for the reader to understand? And when you're writing, always think about your reader as someone who is very well educated or very, very, just as smart as you are, okay? But actually knows absolutely nothing about the topic. So even though they have a very good, they have the ability to understand, they don't know anything about it. And that's kind of how I treat my teaching too, right? It's like, I know that you're all very smart, but you don't know anything about the topic. So I need to introduce what you don't know about it yet, but I also treat you with the respect of someone who is intelligent enough to understand once I explain it, and then understand the significance of your argument, okay? So when discussing a concept from lecture or readings, do not merely summarize, okay? Always rephrase and add your own ideas to elaborate, interrogate, modify, and provide new critical perspectives or thoughts, but within the focus of the essay. So what that means is you can't just say like, Claude Levi-Strauss says this and then move on. You need to say what it is about what Levi-Strauss or Nietzsche, or whatever, what it is about their argument that is useful for your analysis and the argument that you will be making, okay? So, and you need to say it's like, there are some ways that it's useful and some ways that it's not. This is how I will use it, okay? So again, if something does not fit the argument, you have to leave it out. So, when you write a really good essay, you start 3 weeks in advance. So that's why I'm asking you to start now. And you write a lot. For a 1,600 word essay, you may end up writing 3,000 words. And then you'll read the third paragraph and you're like, actually, this paragraph really doesn't prove my point. So then you have to get rid of it. And that's okay, because that's also part of the work that you're doing as a writer, as a thinker. And sometimes we think by writing, okay? And that's important, but that doesn't end up in the essay. Just like when I'm teaching you, I probably have worked on or studied a lot more than what I'm actually going to teach you. But that's okay, because the ability to teach you well means that I had to do a lot more work than just what actually is going to be taught to you in that lecture for the day, okay? And this is all useful. It's all part of your development as your growth as a scholar, as a thinker, okay? So each paragraph concludes with a transition sentence that summarizes the idea in the paragraph and connects it to the following paragraph. The order really matters. So transitions between sentences and paragraphs show your reader how ideas relate to each other. This is really important, because you need to understand what is it about. Your reader needs to understand what it is about what came before that links to what comes next, and why does that order matter. And your transitions, the more I write, the more I understand that transitions are really how you explain your logic. So the movement from this point to this point actually is the logic of the overall argument. So by just reading the topic sentences and the transitions, I will be able to understand the way that the argument works. Okay? So you need to take the time to craft these transitions. Spend a lot of time on it. Okay? Do not repeat the same ideas. Each example is different, and each argument you make using a different example will be different. If they are similar, how is that similarity important to the essay argument? Okay? You always need to be thinking about how does what you're saying next contribute to the overall argument. So keep a tight focus. Everything in the essay has to have a reason for being there. And then conclude your essay with a paragraph that explains the significance of your argument and method of arguing. If your argument is strong, so what? Recontextualize your argument within a larger debate and explain how it contributes to that discussion. Okay? So the last paragraph, your concluding paragraph, is going to be a discussion, and not that long, right? Be concise. An explanation that transitions your essay into the kind of larger field. You're basically making a sort of statement about where this essay and its argument fits into the larger kind of research or scholarship on that area. So you can see the conclusion as a sort of transition also to thinking about its placement in a larger body of research. That larger body of research may end up being your portfolio. It could be your dissertation, okay? Or it could be just overall studies that people make, all right? And that's fine. Whether that's a larger debate about structuralism or a larger debate about, truth, okay? Or, colonization or indigenous thought, okay? That's up to you. And you need to relate it to your argument, okay? So when you proofread, okay, this is really important. Proofread for concision, coherence, and clarity. Okay, use active voice. All right, so those of you who have taken the writing workshop, we went through a lot of exercises on using active voice. So please, do that. Okay, use active voice, and then use the literary present tense. Unless you are talking about something that historically happened, okay, as in like Junot Diaz wrote wrote this novel in 2016 or 2014 or 2012, okay? That's when you use past tense, okay? Otherwise, anytime you're talking about what happens in the text, what happens, or, the way that the text narrates, you use the present tense. Like, Diaz writes, blah, 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 blah. Levi-Strauss writes, blah, 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 okay? The text demonstrates, not demonstrated, not wrote, okay? All right, so your general requirements. Pretty standard, okay? Double space, size 12 fonts. Proofread before you turn it in, okay? Put your name, your ID number, and your title on the first page. Bracket the number of words at the end of the work, okay? So I don't have to count it, all right? If you use sources, include a bibliography, follow the MLA style sheets at the end, okay? MLA is just easy, all right? Submit a soft copy of the midterm and final essays to Moodle and turn it in by the assignment deadlines for grading and for plagiarism checking, okay? So just follow these instructions. If you don't turn it in, then there's going to be a 5% deduction, okay? Oh, this is wrong. I'll change this, okay? But everyone in this program, well, I don't know about the program, but at least in my classes, you can ask for a 2-day extension, okay? But only for one assignment in the semester. So if you choose to do it for the midterm, then you can't do it for the final. If you choose to do it for the final, you can't do it for the midterm, okay? And you basically just get 2 days, no questions asked. You just have to write a week in advance. So you email me, just email me and just say, hey, I would like an extension. And no questions asked, I'll give it to you. But 1 week in advance. So that also means you need to plan ahead. So if you think oh man, I'm not going to make it, a week in advance, that's okay. You get an additional 2 days, but you got to email me ahead of time, okay? All right, no questions asked, okay? The other thing, though, is that if you use it for the midterm, then you can't use it for the final, okay? So if something bad happens when it comes to the final, sorry, too bad, if you've already used the extension. All right, cool. And I'm also okay with if you ask me for the extension and you end up not using it, that's cool. Then you can just still use it for the final, okay? All right, so these are the letter grade attributes, okay? And the grading scheme. Read it over, okay? Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, lastly, okay, you should not use papers for another course to fulfill the assessment requirements of this course. Plagiarism or ideas or words of any other, if they were the author's own, is not tolerable at this course or at HKU. Click on this link and it provides all the information. Basically, don't cheat, okay? Don't cheat, don't cheat, don't cheat, all right? And you're if you cheat, you're cheating yourself too, right? The whole point of this is to get really good at something. So let yourself do that, okay? See it as an opportunity for growth. Okay, that's it for the midterm. If you have any questions about the midterm, I posted a topic in the default course forum. So you have questions about the midterm essay or the poll on the participation and how participation will work, go ahead and ask here, and I'll respond as soon as I can. Okay. And I want you to post it there so that your classmates also will get to read it because they probably have the same questions. Okay. All right. So let's do some forum follow-up. All right. So let's see. Last week we had some forums about narration in the hero's face. So, oops. Sorry, you can hear my baby. He's calling me. So maybe I'm gonna end this this part 1 of this video lecture, and we'll catch up later. Okay. But yeah. What is it about the changing of the hero's face? I think that's a really interesting topic. Okay. And what is it about the changing face of the hero, that says about the way that society might be changing too. Like, do we prefer anti-heroes now? Why is that? Like a lot of people talk about, I haven't seen Joker, but people have talked about it as a sort of discussion of capitalism, or the way that society is going right now. People talk about the Joker. People talk about these kind of like hero slash villains, like Breaking Bad, for example. So what does it say about our present social system? Okay, is there a structural reading of this when the hero's face changes? And remember too that Joseph Campbell's reading of the hero is always one about the kind of spiritual redemption of the society. What does it say if there is no spiritual redemption for heroes? Especially in these anti-hero kind of films like Joker or Breaking Bad. Okay, that's an interesting thing to think about. So that's an interesting discussion, and it's not complete. Okay, there's much more to say about this stuff. Okay. Some talk about the narration, the jumping in time, that kind of stuff. Why does that matter when it comes to ceremony? I'll talk a little bit more about that in part 2 of this lecture. But the way that it's written is really innovative and kind of demonstrates, at least I would think, the way that stories are supposed to be intermingled. They're intertextual, even within the story, even within ceremony itself. And what does that demonstrate about what we're going to talk about in terms of relationality? Okay, all right, and the role of the night swan. This is a really interesting discussion here. Okay, so I'm just going to let you read that and talk about it more, because what is the role of the night swan? And really, what is the role of, I'm gonna let you do that. Okay, I'm gonna let you talk about that more. This is pretty interesting. Okay, cool. So just keep it going. Okay, and then once I finish part 2 of the lecture, then I will I'll create another forum so we can talk more about relationality. So the video lecture on part 2. The video lecture on relationality I'll put here, and then I'll put a forum here so you can talk as well. And then I'm going to put this lecture here so you can talk about the midterm participation and talk about how you want to any questions you might have about the way that the course is going to go on. Okay, so make sure to vote on this, okay, so that we have a clear idea of how we're going to gauge the participation and assess it. Okay, all right, that's it for part 1. I will continue with part 2 after. All right, okay, so that's it. Yeah, post questions, all right? And if you have potential, essay topics or whatever, go ahead and post them, and I can talk about them, and, we can talk about whether or not you think that would work or not work, and how useful it would be. Okay? All right, talk to you soon. Okay, bye.